Well, hello everyone. Good afternoon. This is going all the way down now. It's gonna sound weird with the music in the background, but it's fine. Hello everybody. Welcome to episode number 12 of Final Boss on the 20th of October. It's almost Halloween. I was thinking about trying to do a Halloween show next week, but I don't know if we're all gonna dress up or not. I might have a funny hat on, but we'll see. But tonight we're gonna talk about monks. Monks. Windwalkers, all that crazy stuff. Let me get this thing over here. There it is. Yeah, I did it. And then, my name is Adam K. And tonight we have two awesome monk guests that we voted on this last week on the YouTube. And we actually had a very close race. We had some people that put in through the email and that put in on the actual Final Boss Twitch page to vote for. I don't know why. It's so easy to just go to YouTube and vote. But it's okay. It was a very close race, but it worked out better to do Windwalkers this week. So, joining us tonight, sadly not the 8-bit incarnation of herself, my lovely co-host, Anna Fell. Hi, Anna.
Yeah, hi. This time in full 720p or whatever it is that you're streaming in.
Yep, 720
no
is
good.
good.
No more 8-bit.
No more. We talked about it earlier before the show. She was like, I'm going to go get a camera. So
yeah, I got home from Best Buy like half an hour ago with a new camera in tow, so let's hope that this one works. And if I turn 8-bit anytime throughout the show, then you guys have to tell me so that I know to curse out my ISP a little bit more.
It might just, hey, it'll be a feature. That's a feature of you being on the show. It's a feature.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a downgrade.
All those people who listen to the podcast are just completely missing out, just saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Joining us as well, it's still kind of awkward to call him this, but Tim, known as Hinalover, thank you very much for being on the show tonight, sir.
Hello.
From Roadrunners. We'll go into where you guys are all, what your accolades are, but thank you very much for being here. You're not as blown out anymore. Oh, wait, what's your camera doing? All right, we're good.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I blame the window right next to me.
That's totally fine. As long as you don't go shadow form on us.
Hey, I got bright lights all over the place.
Dry's never going to live that down.
Dry's never going to live that down. Also, Calligraphy Callie, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing really well. How are you guys doing?
I think we're okay. No 8-bit Anna, so it should be fine.
No 8-bit anybody.
No 8-bit anybody.
We're
nope.
4 for 4.
4 for 4. I think after...
And I think I have the crappiest camera right here.
Well, yeah, but see, like, there was a bar set by one of the best players in the world. Roger Brown has, like, the worst camera ever to come on show, and we still made it work, so it's okay. Right?
Uh-huh.
If we can make Roger Brown's camera work, then I think we're okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're good. You're good. Your camera works just fine. So, OMG indeed. So let's go into where you guys are from. Basically, we'll go with Callie first. So you are from Defenestrate, but give a little background on what you do for your monk community, your brothers and sisters.
Mostly at this point, I write guides and do a lot of PTR testing, kind of figuring out what theories are good, what math works, what's practical, what isn't. I also do some of my own number crunching on EJ and a little bit on MMOC. And on MMOC, I weed all the crap and in fact the people who are trolling, flaming, spamming, etc. And just try to make it easier for newer monks to wade through the crap and see what works for them.
Yeah, because I know like the whole point of this episode, and to get back into it to make sure everyone knows, is that they're the brand new class, this expansion. So I know everyone's been like, how do I monk? So you guys do a ton of stuff. And then what did you do as well, Hina?
Basically, I basically help with the number crunching. I do a lot of the theory crafting for the monk community. I work with Salty Cracker, who made up a fantastic haste spreadsheet, and basically bounced ideas off of him to just get the numbers correct. And so far, we've gotten pretty good with our. Basically, we've gotten pretty good with it. So.
Yeah.
So it's basically just me and a few others just bouncing off ideas, just making sure the ideas of basically Windwalker, which is a new class, and spec, just go with it.
Huh. Yeah, because I know when you win a new class, and I know DK's felt this for a while. I know they've got revamped again with this expansion as well. But I don't know how that feels to be a brand new class and to have like no way of knowing, because you don't have pro players that have been playing it for years. So you guys are like basically boldly going where no other players have gone before, to not to steal someone else's tagline. But there's a whole lot of stuff you have to work out, right?
Oh yeah. Back when there was a ton of I wasn't part of it because I didn't have a DK until like Kata. But there was I just saw a lot of theory crafting going around just for monks when Wrath came out, and just the same idea happened. Not as much as far as I can remember, uh, back when Mist first hit beta, but otherwise, it's been kind of a drog. Three different masteries, three different major patches.
Wow.
Yeah, you know, because Anna was gonna go for it with that one. Yeah.
No, I mean it's just nuts to play a class that has mechanics that change so regularly. It's tier 14 mastery works one way, tier 15 mastery works another way. I feel like especially with how much the devs talk about how they don't want to change classes too much so as not to drive people away.
Yeah.
That just must be a roller coaster to play a class like that.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, we're all definitely looking forward to our 6.0 mastery.
Already excited.
That's terrible, though. I feel bad for you guys because, like, how do you deal with that every patch to basically rework? Right? Like, what do you do? How do you handle that?
Luckily, the 5.2 mastery was a fairly easy thing to figure out because it was just a straight up buff. But because of one specific trinket, they had to change it again. And so this one it's a little bit more difficult to kind of nail down the correct what you should be aiming for.
Yeah.
And then it's just kind of because the first one was so bad that you basically wanted as little mastery as possible.
And that's not very fun from a game development standpoint,
No.
or as a player. Like, that's not gonna work.
Yeah, and it causes our scaling to be pretty terrible. I mean, our scaling right now is kind of questionable with mastery because it doesn't take very much mastery to already generate 1%. I think it's something like 250, 240 in that range.
Huh. Okay.
And so on top of that, it is a stacking mechanic, but we can get more into that later.
Oh, yeah, of course. Well, I guess we're grinding it in here. The plight of monks and Windwalker specifically, and how that you're trying to get a handle on your class, but every patch it changes. So, but to break away from that real quick, what are you guys up to outside of the game? I know that none of us here are done with the tier yet. We're not done with tier 16, but we have BlizzCon on the horizon now. But what else have you been doing? I know Anna just bought a camera. Do you want to walk? So,
Yeah, bought a camera, killed Spoils. I don't remember if Spoils was killed last time I was on the show, but
you killed
oh
it.
my
I think
gosh.
after the episode. I think.
I
Yeah.
think we did. I've now killed it twice, and it is 100% my favorite encounter of the expansion. Not expansion. My favorite encounter of the tier yet. I
Yeah.
just really like all the target switching. I love that it's wonderful with my 4-piece. It's just a lot of fun. Really like that fight. So now we're working on Thok, and it's nice to be needed for Devo. Always.
Devo Aura pretty strong. What about you?
Yeah,
Hannah?
Devo Aura.
Our guild has gotten 8 out of 14, so we just finished the first set. We're working on Malkarok. Should have that done next week. Outside, I basically do programming for a living, so working on that. Haven't really done much theory crafting with the monks recently, but it's come and goes.
Because I guess you also didn't talk about it too. What program did you used to work on before recently? Or where you had a lot of your time?
Well, before I became a monk, I was actually a mage with a alt. One of my major alts was a feral druid and guardian, and so through that, I was able to get into the program RAR, and I was helping develop that for quite a while. But then suddenly, a few major players kind of dropped out of the program, and so the program kind of died off.
Yeah.
But right about that time, my guild decided to ask people, "Do you want to switch to a monk?" So I started switching to my monk, and then just kind of dropped RAR from there.
Yeah, that's sad. Is the program still kept up at all though, right now, or is
A little bit, yes. I just haven't really gotten back into it. I was actually thinking in maybe a month or so to contact the guy who's trying to keep it up and running if he needed more help.
Yeah, definitely go ahead and do that. I know that was a huge program. I used to use it back in the day, probably mostly in Wrath and through Cataclysm. But yeah, that's sad, but it's kind of, I guess there's a lot of work that has to go into a simulator that has to work on every class and spec. So
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
Right now, I am helping out a little bit with simulation craft, but I haven't really gone into the nitty gritty of it since I just recently got access to it.
Yeah. Interesting. And then what about you, Callie?
Well, in real life, I actually just moved to San Francisco. If you watched Monk Meditation, you probably saw me with a completely different background than what I have now. It was in a completely different city. So I am a web programmer out here. I basically just write a lot of JavaScript and PHP. On the internet, as we've discussed, I obviously play a lot of WoW. And I did do some code commits for Simulation Craft, but I ended up dropping it because of real-life events. I still work on guides, and I still moderate the MMOC forums.
Awesome. I know every episode when we go into like the pre-show interview to like build the background for this, I always want to know if we have anyone to contend with. I'm not sure though, Anna. Have we solidified that Lancel still has the best outside little hobby, or does Frostmourne trump?
No, Frostmourne.
Frostmourne
It's
trumps?
all about Frostmourne.
Yeah.
That intro was just unstoppable. Everybody in the chat,
Yeah.
if you didn't watch last week's episode, you need to go to YouTube and fix that problem right now.
Yeah.
Because the first 10 minutes of it are amazing.
It was pretty funny. And then, of course, he gets it in the after show as well. Well, that'll should come out either tonight or tomorrow as well. But, yeah, that was pretty good. I don't know, the 35-pound Lego Millennium Falcon, though. Maybe because I just loved Lego so much as a kid.
Oh, yeah, nothing against Lancel. I mean, that was
Yeah.
amazing. That was totally cool. I expect every future guest to try to outdo that. So I know we almost had the beach behind Callie here, and that would have been pretty amazing.
Yeah, instead we have Fog City. So.
Yeah, Fog City. It's there. It's there. Just imagine it. I'll just go in later and key it out. I'll key it out and I'll put the beach in for you. How
We'll
about that?
Photoshop a beach in behind her. Yeah.
That's not
Well, I'm
happening.
sure the fog will probably disappear by the end of the show. It tends to come and go.
I gotcha. So then I guess to move on right into this, I think the only thing that a lot of people were expecting when the monk class was released, right, when we were talking about it, is we were like, okay, new class, yay, they did this before Wrath of the Lich King, and it was a hero class, and then monks are not. So I guess we're going to break down a little bit of the background of monks, and like where they started, and how you guys heard about them in the beta, and why they aren't a hero class, because I kind of thought that was weird. I guess they wanted to have like a starter zone for themselves new, but I don't know who wants to chomp at the bit on that topic, on what you guys thought about not being a hero class, but I thought that was weird.
Go first, because mine actually does involve my previous mate. So
Yeah.
I went to the last BlizzCon, and at that point in time, I was Resto Shaman. I had been since, like, vanilla. And they announced the Monk class, and I was immediately interested because I'd enjoyed Monk in other D&D style games. So I signed up for the annual pass, ended up in one of the final invites for the annual pass, and ended up playing Brewmaster exclusively on beta, and really enjoyed it. I didn't really try Winwalker actually until Tier 14 came out. So I think as far as it not being a hero class, I think that's fine. But I do feel that it would have a greater player base if we had started out at like level, even if we had started out 55. 80 would have been preferable, but a lot of people just ended up hopping anyway.
Yeah, I don't
recruiter
know.
friends. Wasn't there a lot of recruiter friend nonsense going on right at leveling?
Yeah.
Oh, heck yes. What do you think I did?
Yeah,
Everybody.
same here.
I know he just got his hand up.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like everybody who actually started raiding with a monk in T14 pretty much did the recruiter friend thing, because there's just, it would have been hell to get it up in a week otherwise.
Yeah, I would either be a Guardian Druid or Resto Shaman if it weren't Recruit a Friend.
Yeah. Yeah, that's terrible. But I guess I think that's what our monk did as well, too. He had the recruiter friend and like all the levels. I think he logged in, created it, finished the turtle, and then all of a sudden was level 60. within like an hour and a half or something crazy. So because you give all the free levels or whatever, how that works. I've never recruited a friend before. I'm a total noob at it because I can't play enough of the game. But is that how it worked for you guys?
No, actually, what I did was the goal at the time was Horde, so I just made a level 1 orc, killed a few mobs so that I'm exactly 99% XP level 1, and did recruiter friend all the way to 80 point level 80, 97% or something like that. So I only had to kill like 1 or 2 mobs, get 81, and then went from there. I was level 90 by that Thursday.
Wow. Yeah. And when was the launch? Was what, Tuesday night?
Mm-hmm.
What? Yep. That's pretty incredible. I know. I
That's
think
ridiculous.
But I don't know.
Actually,
I think
and I had a job at the time, full-time job.
Yeah.
So I was going up to like 2 o'clock in the morning, going to bed, waking up at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, going to work.
Wow. I mean, I have a job too, but I took off work that week. But I never take off work, so I had the PTO to spare.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I went from 85 to 90 like 3 or 4 times, just to get the idea of what the quests were, and then just so once I hit the 85, I knew where to go specifically for wins, and then just kept going and going and going past everyone else. So
Yeah. No,
I hate leveling, so I wasn't that planned and organized.
No, not that not that planned and organized. That's so. I mean, I had my planned out too, and I tried to do it really quickly, but I bailed out. I tried to do a 24-hour event, and I'd only get like 18 hours in, and I went to bed. I couldn't do it. I don't know. I'm getting old, apparently. Yeah, but I know we had monks by that weekend, 90. So I definitely was possible. But I guess they kind of planned for it because there was no like Blizzard limiting recruiter friend or anything like that, so they knew it was going to happen. So I don't know. But then what's the big difference between monks, right? So what are your, like, how does a monk work? Just like a bare bones basic of the 3 different specs, because you have different resources that other classes do. Sort of.
Mostly
Right.
we punch stuff in the face, and every now and then we kick it.
Yeah.
Unless you're a Mistweaver.
Yeah.
well, Mistweaver you could punch and kick as well.
Yeah, it's just not very mana efficient.
So no
So-
stabbing stuff, no slashing stuff. It's all punching and kicking.
Well, you do jab at it, but I guess that's kind of punching.
Yeah.
As someone who's kind of played all 3, I guess Mistweaver, I'm more of an LFR hero, though G-Dragon is much better than I am, by a lot. For Brewmaster, it's a lot of keg smash and tanking stuff, whereas with Windwalker, rather than keg smash, you have your Storm, Earth, and Fire Cleave. So at the core, I feel that all 3 specs are roughly the same, although Mistweaver, after 5.1, kind of took a little bit of a detour.
And then what kind of, you have a special resource as a monk, which I know I talked about in the notes, and Hina actually switched it, but I think it's basically hold power, right? It's 4 points of what, and it's a combo point system, just like how Holy, Prot Paladins kind of always like are with it. So you have energy and chi, but then you have mana for Mistweaver, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Basically what it is every time you do a jab, Mistweaver, you use Soothing Mist, you gain a chi point or an energy orb or whatever you want to call it. For monks is chi, and basically you build up. And then we have a kind of a mini finisher called a Blackout Kick, Rising Sun Kick, or Fist of Fury, which basically reduce the amount of chi you have. So it's managing the amount of chi you have as well as the energy you have. More energy regen you have, the more chi you're able to generate, the more finishers you're able to use.
So is that like, is it very roguish in that sense that you have just basically
yes,
builders and spenders?
Rogue / feral druids, yes. But unlike rogues who have mostly 3, 4, 5 combo points, we have a set amount of 2 or 3 finishers.
Yeah, interesting. So you only have a couple to choose from then, right?
Yes. Blackout Kick, Rising Sun Kick, or Fist of Fury.
Okay. And we'll talk about...
Palm. Don't forget Tiger Palm.
Oh, Tiger
Or
Palm.
Tiger Palm.
Okay. We'll talk about Fist of Fury later in the show. But right now we'll leave it as that. That's a whole separate ball of wax. Yeah. But then, I guess to backtrack just slightly then, how did you guys feel the whole story was built up with monks? Like, how did it all feel for you guys, like, when you switched mains? I know we're going to get into that in one more topic away from here, but, like, the whole Turtle Island, and you get to pick your faction when you finish it, like, how did that all feel for you guys, going into it fresh in MOP?
Unfortunately for me, because I did the whole recruiter friend, I skipped it when it went live. But
That's exactly what I was alluding to, yep.
yeah, but I did go through while it was in beta. I was able to get in fairly early in the beta, actually, so I was able to check it out when it first came out. And besides that, everyone decided to, ooh, let's make a panda. Uh, that whole experience, and there were a few bugs at the time, but otherwise, the storyline for it, I thought was very good. It showed the society of the Pandarians, as well as reason why they're going to the mainland and choosing their faction. Basically, decided to take out a chunk of the turtle at the. So, and one side wanted to blow it up, the other side wanted to try to figure something out. Hence the lion side and horse side.
I think
Yeah.
Kelly had something too, yeah.
Yeah, I actually played through the island on launch day because I was kind of poor at the time. And I was also playing on Mal'Ganis, so I knew that it wouldn't matter if I didn't get a head start on hitting level 81 right away. I think that it was kind of nice and relaxing to play through it. For me, it was pretty late at night. I already pulled an all-nighter just being really excited about the launch. And I think the lore was kind of fun. The quests were pretty fun. And it was really interesting to see how they portrayed the Horde and the Alliance, because if you go into it from the perspective of a newer player, they don't really show either one as being good or evil, which is exactly how I see Horde and Alliance. No one's good, no one's evil.
Yeah.
So it was great seeing an actual portrayal of that and showing, hey, Horde's a little bit more hot-headed, whereas Alliance isn't. That I kind of disagreed with, but with Garrosh, I guess Horde has become a little bit hot-headed.
Well, I think there's two different hordes that form too. The true horde, which I guess now is disbanded, right? Or there's remnants of it and stuff like that. And then there's like the horde led by Vol'jin now. And what was it called? They had like two different words or terms for the Alliance and the Horde. Like they were called something. I can't remember what it's off the top of my head. I didn't put that in the notes because I knew there was like the backstory of like that they're not evil or good. They're just different. What are they called? Dang it, chat room might help us out here in a second.
Yeah, I know. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, they called them different things, and that's what you picked when you chose your path as a Pandaren off that island as a monk. So
all I remember from beta is that one of them had cookies.
One of what? One of them had cookies?
Yeah, whenever they hadn't added in the flavor text, I think they just said the Alliance had cookies or something.
There we go. Yeah. So Tushi. How does it pronounce? Tushy. So Tushy.
What are we, 12?
Yeah, and Hojin. So probably pronounced a little differently. I have no idea. But yeah, those are the two ones. Yeah, and it was the different ways they have viewed their strength or something like that. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I just really liked it. I played through the Monk starting zone. I actually played through the DK starting zone 3 times, I think, back in Wrath. I thought that was one of the most engaging pieces of WoW that I'd ever played. I really like that class-specific stuff, and I thought the monk starting zone was done really well too. I felt like I hadn't seen the whole expansion until I saw the monk starting zone, and I really liked the story. You know, I don't have a very high opinion of most of WoW's storyline, but I just sometimes they really pull out all the stops, and I really think they did with that monk story.
Yeah, I kind of agree. The monk starting zone was more of an introduction to the Pandarian race, where their philosophies and whatnot. Well, the DK one, which I had gone through, is more of about the class, about why are these people rising up and going against the Lich King.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like the monk starting zone was really very much about the whole expansion, and it gave you a feel for the way the storyline went from start to finish. So.
Yeah, the Pandaren starting zone. Yeah, just to make sure we don't.
Sorry, Pandaren starting zone.
Yeah, minx words there, absolutely. So I didn't see it because I went Pandaren on my Shaman, but I just race changed, right? Because I knew that I wanted to not be a space goat anymore, and I didn't want to go dwarf. So I just did it, but I actually haven't been able to play back through it, and it's terrible. I'll admit this right now. I haven't even played through the new Vanilla WoW yet on either side.
Ugh.
It's terrible.
Neither
I
have I.
know. What is
Leveling
wrong with
sucks.
me? What am I even doing hosting this show? I'm just gonna,
But every time I
It's
start
almost
a
like
new-
leveling's horrible.
well, yeah, we'll go back to what you said earlier.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
true.
It is. And every time I started a new character, I actually took them to the Draenei starting zone, because I thought that was before Cataclysm. I thought that was the best starting zone of them all. So I guess maybe it's just these newer starting zones that really give you a feel for the race, or the class in the case of the DK, are really nice. They should do more of that.
Yeah, do more of that, definitely. I totally agree. But they can't. I mean, they fixed it, I guess, in the vanilla because gnomes have their own now, and dwarves is the same as it used to be. But I guess they've still fixed that a little bit. But then everyone else took the same place, so it does feel different to like start in a brand new, never in the game area before. And technically, these DKs you start in the past. I think you time travel, so
Yeah.
because you're dead, I think you time
Leveling
travel.
in the past.
Little bit of
If
Doctor
only all
Who.
of my leveling was in the past.
Yeah, exactly. So let's move
let's
on.
talk a little bit more about y'all's journey to becoming a monk. I know that each one of you guys had a different reason for main swapping to your monk, and that's not an easy decision to make, to swap mains as a hardcore raider and also to swap to a completely new class. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what drove that decision for both of you.
Yeah,
Tina,
I'll
go
go
for it.
first.
Yeah.
As I mentioned before, I actually basically I started as a mage. I started in Wrath as a mage and played all the way through Kata as a mage as my main. Back in just before Wrath came out, I started leveling up a Feral Druid and Guardian, and played through that all the way through Kata as well. And at the time, my guild was asking for people who were wanting to switch to to monk, since the GM figured, oh, it's going to be just like DKs, they're going to be overpowered. And so I figured, because I had experience playing as my Feral Druid, I figured might as well just I'd offer. I played my mage for long enough. Might as well just switch over to a monk. Check it out. If not, I can switch back to my mage as my main alt, which my mage is still my main alt.
Sure.
And that's basically how I got into Windwalker. I figured easiest way is for me to be a Windwalker with a Brewmaster aspect, since I've had tanking background.
So it wasn't like a big guild decision that you like. I know some guilds. I know you go into that like, we need monks going to the next expansion, so let's see who wants to be, and like what is it, like dredge the waters for who wants to actually switch mains. So it wasn't like a big setup like that for you. You just like thought, let me do this. It wasn't like a big.
A little bit of both.
Oh, okay. So it was still, because I know the different guilds have different approaches to that. Like I know Crisp like poked around for who wants to go monk, right?
Yeah.
And then comes around in full circle that none of the original monks are even in the guild anymore. But whatever, that's fine.
We had exactly the same experience. I know
Yeah.
we poked around to see who would be interested in going monk, and we had a couple of people who are interested and, got their monks up. And then for a long time, we didn't have any monks. We just recently managed to hold on to a Mistweaver, and we've had Rotund for, I think, 2 tiers now, but he wasn't originally in Something Wicked. We
Yeah.
recruited him after he switched to his Windwalker. But yeah, it's funny how that goes.
Definitely. What about you, Callie?
For me, it was an even harder decision. I actually played quite a bit of beta just to make sure I was making the right choice. I played Resto, Shaman, starting in vanilla. Then during Spine of Deafening and Madness, I was asked to swap to my druids since they were very strong tanks. And apparently, I was a good tank at the time.
Yeah.
So whenever they announced the monk class, I tried it out, and I first figured, wow, this is actually a class I enjoy. So I went into beta, intending to actually play Brewmaster. So in Tier 14, I played Brewmaster for probably the first and second week. And then my guild was kind of starting to fall apart at that point in time. That was whenever I was on Mal'Ganis. So I had to find a new one, and no one wanted Brewmasters at the time. It was really hard for me to actually find a guild recruiting a Brewmaster. I went Windwalker.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually just what I ended up sticking with.
Interesting. But still, I love how when we always get like the people we get on the show have different like I think. Oh, is Tim not frozen? No, you're not frozen. You're just sitting there waiting.
Yeah.
Is that they always have different approaches to... I know you guys have a different spread with your guilds right now because Defenestrate is US 15th and Roadrunners is US 96th. And I love to see the different dichotomies that build from how you approach situations like this, and especially like a main swap and almost like a huge class swap to like basically the unknown outside of beta. And you know it's going to change all the time because it's a brand new class, and DKs basically didn't even get fixed until now. So, and they launched an expansion more ago, right? So they had all this time, but that's incredible how that happens. It's always different how every guild handles that situation. So, and then I guess was just like the new, like, I always say the new hotness was what drove you to either be monks, or was there a guild need? I know that Hina said it was kind of like a halvesies thing.
Yeah,
right?
basically.
There was nothing really big.
Yeah, and for me it was just I didn't enjoy the changes to Guardian. I preferred the old, kind of a little bit more convoluted rotation, and with Resto Shaman, well, I actually wanted to get enhance one on my Shaman, but I was told we don't have room for an enhanced Shaman, but we do need you to tank. So it was either Druid, roll a different tank class, or go Monk, and I found that I just really enjoyed Monk.
And now you said that you did a lot of monk work on the PTR.
Yes.
Oh,
Especially the recent one.
But I mean, originally, like the mop beta, you were a monk there for some time.
I think I logged about 45 days on the mob.
Oh my god!
What?
Yeah.
See, that just floors me. Like I do a lot of PTR testing at this point with my guild because we're always in there to work on TPM. But the whole idea of not just leveling, but leveling on the PTR just blows my mind. Some of you guys who put that time in, it's ridiculous.
Oh, I did it until they had the level 85 templates at least.
Okay.
Well, it was easier for me given the fact that by the time the beta was out, our guild had just finished up with Heroic Madness, so we had a lot of extra time to work with. So I was able to get onto the beta, and then also to level up several times. First of all, at first it was with my druid just to get information for RAR, but then later on I leveled up a monk to check that out, and that was actually didn't really get into my monk until like a month and a half, 2 months before release.
Wow. Yeah. It's so different. I just find that fascinating. I mean, I've learned so much just making this show, but then finding out how all these different little things work, and guild leadership here, and like raid structure and spreadsheets over here, and then how to handle like class changes like that. It's pretty awesome. So, but should we do, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think, Anna? I guess that's the one question.
Your call.
It's my call?
You expect me to make a decision?
No, I was going to move on to that because that was pretty general stuff. I wanted to make sure we had enough time to talk about the meat and potato section of the show. Has so many topics. Someone's going to take this minute right here to break away from this and to take just a moment to tell you guys about some of the awesome communities that we're a part of and that help make this show awesome. So, first and foremost, if you've been here before, you've heard me rant and rave about this website. But if you need any more WoW community-oriented stuff or awesome articles and great breakdowns of the raiding scene, then you want to go right over here to manaflask.com. They actually just posted where to go. Where's Buzzkill's new lair? They have an article where they were breaking down... Nope. Where is it? It's not loading. Here it is. They were talking about Heroic Leishen versus Heroic Ragnaros in Buzzkill's lair. It's super awesome. And they also broke down all the different progression for 2510 and Asia's scene over here too in the race, and they have the whole timeline of how that all went down. And then of course they had they have the interview with the guild, but just Genuine, I think, was just one that like on their last pull killed Heroic Garrosh, then like disbanded. They have got the interview with Method over here. They had the interview with Paragons, which I guess is really random. And rare because I don't think they've done a lot of interviews here. But they have an interview with the 10-man rating over here with Paragon, which was super fun. I read through most of it. But manaflask.com is a huge resource for just community-driven stuff, and you guys should go check it out. On the blog Frontier, sacredduty.net. Sacredduty.net is where Thek is home to, and where all of his Paladin blogging goes on here. And I was reading actually his Timeless Isle post here, and tons of different awesome things with all the different specs of Paladin. It's mostly though protection, though. Am I correct, Anna?
Yes, protection.
Protection, but there's a little retribution on the side, I would assume. In the blog stuff, or
there should be more.
There should be more.
There should be more. If I said there was retribution stuff, it would just be a lie, because unfortunately I haven't had a chance to write a whole lot of blog posts recently. I do more of my posting on EJ, sometimes on MMOC. I mean, that's just where most of the work happens. But once in a while, there will be posts for me. I like to write about the raid tiers, so usually there will be like a post about the raid tiers, and I may write something about my gemming, since I am gemmed completely differently from most ret paladins right now, and I should probably explain why, so that people don't so that people don't think I'm a bad. So there will be a blog post there at some point that can call me on this later if I don't follow through.
Yeah, and then there's tons. The big thing I saw on this website too is you have the weak aura strings for just not only your classes though, but you have tons of different weak aura strings here for all these different classes and all these different specs. So that's a huge resource if you guys need weak auras for different classes.
Beck is a weak aura expert. Oh yeah, and if you ask him about any of them, he would love to talk about them too.
Yeah, so go to that's sacredduty.net, and then recently brought on here, which is close to my home, is totemspot.com. Totemspot is the all and like premier resource, I want to say, for everything Shaman. All three specs. They've got guides. They have his breakdowns. It's a huge forum-based community that has everything you want to know about elemental enhancement and restoration and add-ons, and they break down every patch comes out and a huge new thread opens up. So totemspot.com is if you have any questions about shamans, or if you have shamans in your guild that need some help or some questions, then go right over there. And then we talked about it earlier, but I want to make sure we get the shout out right to Monk Meditation, where they have a monk exclusive podcast that these two of our awesome guests have been on before, and I wanted to make sure we give a mention to them. They've got 6 episodes so far, right? They're just getting started. But they have been breaking down. They got a Brewmaster roundtable here, Windwalker roundtable, and then their first couple of episodes, they got some Mistweaver stuff here, and I'm sure that'll only expand as the class grows and develops. But that's just monkmeditation.com. So you guys can definitely go check them out and give them some love in the future here if you have any more monk inquiries, because as we rotate around with Final Boss, we only cover so much every episode, obviously, and once we do one class, we can't go back to that class for a while because we have so many other classes to go through, or community spotlight episodes or interview type shows. So it'll be a little different, but you guys can go check them out if you want more monk stuff. But and of course, everything on this show goes up on iTunes and YouTube. All that stuff's on our website, just FinalBoss.tv. Super simple. So if you have missed an episode, want to watch a previous one with Scoa Roger Brown's terrible camera, or learn about Lansol's incredible 35-pound Millennium Falcon made out of Legos, that's all on the YouTube page. So you guys can go check that out. But to move this right along into the giant chunky part of the show, which we like to call the meat and potatoes, because every show has to have a ton of class talk when we have to do a class episode. So how do you guys actually walk on wind? And what does that even mean? So
they get a priest to levitate them.
Is that what they do? Is that what they do?
It helps.
It's the secret.
That's the secret. So I know we gave a small little rundown overly in the show about what a monk is, but let's go right into Windwalker here and give a basic rundown of what you guys do as a monk. So you have Billows and Spenders, Energy and Chi, and then how does that work for you guys? Give me a rundown of your normal rotational kind of thing. How does that feel, and how does that work for no one that knows how to windwalk?
Basically, we have two buffs/debuffs we try to keep track of. One is called a Rising Sun Kick debuff, which increases damage of all our abilities, as well as Tiger Palm, which is refreshed every time we use Tiger Power, whenever we use an ability called Tiger Palm. Whenever we jab, we generate chi. Whenever or expel harm, we generate chi. We got another one that generates for AoE, but besides the point. And then, like I mentioned before, we have a Blackout Kick, a Rising Sun Kick, which applies the Rising Sun Kick debuff, and Fist of Fury. Each one of those reduces the amount of chi we have. And basically, it's figuring out the best way to keep the Rising Sun Kick debuff up at all times, Tiger Palm up at all times, and basically best way to use up our chi in the most DPS oriented way. As I mentioned before, more energy we have, more haste we have means more energy we similar to a rogue.
Yes.
More energy we're able to use. More energy we have means more jabs we can use. More jabs means more chi. More chi equals more chi spenders, and then it just rotates from there.
So then I guess if Callie wants to go in, yeah, go ahead. I heard you unmute there. Yeah.
I was just going to grow on that. So
Sure.
we don't really track the RSK debuff, at least I don't, because if you're using RSK on cooldown, it's always going to be up. The cooldown on Rising Sun Kick is 8 seconds. The debuff itself is 15 seconds, and it also applies itself kind of in an AoE cone. So the origin of the debuff is on whatever your target is, and then it's every other target that's 8 yards away from that.
Okay.
So basically, even in an AoE situation, you don't need to change targets to apply your debuff. You can keep on the main target that you're on. And then Tiger Palm, typically you should be able to refresh that with what's known as your Combo Breaker procs, which Combo Breaker is a passive that we've received that causes either Blackout Kick or Tiger Palm to to cost no chi. So very rarely will you actually need to use chi on Tiger Palm. Typically, you should be able to use your Combo Breaker procs to refresh it.
So I got to go back and summarize that from like what I was listening to is that it seems like a very, at least to begin with, I know that like the first thing I thought of with rogues, they had that hunger for blood to keep up, and maintenance buffs, and I know Anna has a little bit with that too with
Inquisition.
Inquisition, and that's been changed now to not be so obnoxious, right?
Well, I never thought it was obnoxious in the first place.
Well,
but
it only lasted like 12 seconds before, right? Or something ridiculous.
30 or
Nuh-uh.
30.
No way. That's short?
It was 10 seconds per holy power.
Okay.
It was 12 seconds per holy power with a set bonus, and then it was 30 seconds,
Yeah.
and now it's a minute.
Yeah,
So
well, that's
20
like a minute is such a
seconds per holy
long
power.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that stemmed from the whole hunger for blood issue, which is just such a problem to do all of the like the maintenance buffs. So is Windwalker very maintenance oriented? Like, do you have to keep? I guess Callie, so you don't have to really look for your Rising Sun Kick debuff, but everything else does it roll really smoothly throughout your rotations, or is it much that you have to like kind of what's the word I'm looking for here? Like play a little bit of Duck Duck Goose with your buttons. Like, how does that?
It kind of depends. There's one rotation which is the one that I typically use, that actually uses Fist of Fury. If you're using Fist of Fury, you actually do need to micromanage a lot of your Tiger Palm, check where your cooldown is on Rising Sun Kick. That way you don't lose damage by casting Fist of Fury. So arguably yes, but you can also ignore Fist of Fury and just kind of have a very monotonous and, in my opinion, boring rotation that just applies Tiger Palm every 20 seconds, hits RSK every time it's off cooldown, fill that with jabs and blackout kicks.
I see. Interesting. Alrighty. And then we talk about just like a basic rotation here, but what about when you bring in outside influences with your talents? Like, what are there big changes in your rotation based on certain talents or glyphs, I guess? And has that changed throughout the patches? I know that some have been more predominant than others, but like right now, I guess we'll talk about that. Does anything really change based on any of those factors?
Kind of. For example, one of the talent changes we had recently is that Chi Brew was completely reworked. Instead of so previously it restored 4 Chi, which is your entire Chi bar. Now it restores 2 Chi, but also gives you 2 stacks of Tiger Eye Brew. Sorry.
Yes.
Whereas previously the go-to was to simply use Ascension, which is a flat 15% energy regen. So with that change now, we have much more control over our burst and the fact that we have more stacks of Tiger Eye Brew and also are able to get a little bit of Chi on demand. if that makes sense.
Yeah, interesting. I guess to backtrack that real quick here, if one of you wants to talk about what Tiger's Eye Brew even is. I think Keen is muted. You're muted, sir. Yep, there you go.
Explain.
Sorry.
There you go.
Tiger Eye Brew is basically our short-term cooldown. Basically, every time we use up chi, 4 chi, no matter what it is, whether it's from Fizz Fury, Rising Sun Kick, whatever, we generate Tiger Eye Brew. And then from there, each stack of Tiger Eye Brew gives us a stacking 6% buff damage for 15 seconds. Is increased by our tier 15 4-piece, which makes it 6.5% per stack.
Mm-hmm.
And then that stacks up. You can use up to 10 stacks. So 65% damage increase for 15 seconds.
Interesting. I mean, that's like almost like a passive, whereas you said every time you use 4 chi, you get 1 stack of it, correct?
Yeah, and then you can use up to 10 stacks for 15 seconds, and it's you can almost get to the point of chaining it, but generally not.
Yeah, because what he means by that is our mastery was recently changed. By recently, I mean again in this previous patch, so that every time you use 4 chi, you have the chance to gain an extra stack of Tiger Eye Brew. As I mentioned earlier, it only takes about 240 mastery or so to actually get 1% mastery, so that's 1% extra chance to gain another stack. Some people talked about having a hard cap for it, but after 100% mastery, you start getting 2 stacks every time you use 4 chi, and then you have a chance to get a 3rd stack of it. So you can eventually reach this point where you're just constantly chaining Tiger Eye Brew, which isn't very ideal because then you're also wasting stats that can go to haste or crit. So what you want to do with your Tiger Eye Brew is synchronize it with your major cooldowns, which you don't really have any, but I'm thinking more along the lines of Fist of Fury or Rising Sun Kick, or with your trinket procs.
Yeah, that seems... I know I've talked to Slight, the Windwalker, and Chris about that kind of stuff because of having like on-pull burst, and that's where I excel. I'm Enhanced Shaman. I have like 1.53 million is my top score right now for on-pull burst.
Top score?
Yeah, I rank myself. I have to like see how high I can get.
Do you take a screenshot when all of your cooldowns are done just so that you can record it every time you pull a fight?
No. You can see it on your when you go to logs though. But it's just like a personal thing. I want to see how high I can go. But I know for Slight, that's not a thing that he ever looks at. It's like 3 minutes into the fight when all of a sudden he's top by like 30 million damage. Because your damage is so... It kind of feels like it's old Enhancement Shaman, but it's very like the longer the fight goes, the more damage you do, just because of how the element works for Enhancement Shaman. But now for Monk, it's very like... You're very controlled and almost like fluid source of damage. Is that more... Okay.
Yes.
We're definitely much more sustained. Even with Tiger Eye Brew's stacking mechanic, we're still probably one of the most sustained DPS classes. With the changes to Chi Brew, we actually do have a bit more burst damage. You probably noticed that Slight. We were actually talking recently about how both of us can now burst up to 400, 500k on pull, which is causing us to keep up a little bit better in the first 30 seconds. But yeah, I mean, I've talked to a lot of raid leaders in the past who are like, oh, my Windwalker isn't, pulling the same numbers as everyone else. And I'm like, well, you're looking at a 1 minute log. You can't really gauge a class by 1 minute of damage.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And is that like part of a really big short sight that Blizzard's still dealing with your class right now too? Because you have no answer for like the game is so on the pull right now, right? There's so much you bloodless on the pull, you pre-pot, whatever, all your trinkets and your ICDs.
Pull, it's on burst. It's on demand burst.
Yeah.
That's a lot of hard mode encounters require on demand burst. We don't really see a lot of them in this tier, at least not in the ones that I've seen. But in general, the ability to control the amplitude basically of your DPS output is very powerful.
Yeah, and the most we'll do is 60% damage bonus for a specific amount of time. Like sometimes I'll hold on to my Tiger Eye Brew for those specific burst DPS, like the Jailer for Thok.
Yeah,
and
okay.
I'll hold on to my Tiger Eye Brew specifically for him.
Interesting. It's just like, it's so weird, and you don't have any real big. That's your only real cooldown, essentially, right? Is your Tiger Eye Brew?
Yeah.
Well, we have a talent, but that summons a pet for 45 seconds.
Oh God, are we gonna talk about Zwen?
Yes, talk about Gwen.
I hate cooldowns that summon pets. Let me just tell you.
That's why I was
They
scared.
They are a big pet peeve of mine. I realize that I have one, and I still hate it. I want them all to go away. But sorry, keep going.
Other than Zwen, we Tiger Eye Brew is our only other real cooldown.
Yeah, and like I just said in chat, he's not even really much of a cooldown. I mean, he's still 45 seconds, so yeah, for a 3-minute cooldown, that's still 1/3 of the fight that he's up. And furthermore, for a lot of fights, anything that's 2 or more targets, we're not even going to be taking him. We're going to be taking Rushing Jade Wind instead.
Yeah, I mean, especially for we're talking about Siege of Ogrima right now, where it's 9 of the 14 fights have an AoE cleave cross dot component, and I always think it's hilarious on certain fights that Slight can take advantage of Rushing Jade Wind, like on Protectors of the Endless, not Protectors of the Endless, the Fallen Protectors. His margin of damage overall in that fight compared to second place is just stupid because that talent. But other fights that are very more single target oriented, and he's got that stupid tiger jumping around, like I don't think it does anything. And its pathing is terrible. It has like raptor pathing like I have with my Spirit Wolves, and it like runs this
Pathing being bad on Guardian?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Every patch,
Shock.
they say they're going to increase his IQ, but he's still kind of like that picture of the inbred white tiger that floats around the internet every now and then. Yeah, Shaman kind of sucks.
Yeah, he's not. And I feel bad. I almost feel because it lasts so long, they should cut the duration and actually have it do more damage, because it lasts so long, and that means it does all its damage over the duration, but it doesn't really do a whole lot on demand. It kind of like it's supplementary to your damage. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a flavor thing.
Exactly. There you go.
And that's a talent? Zuen is
That's a talent.
Yeah.
Level
Well, that
9 talent.
That kind of brings me into one of our next questions, which is how much y'all switch your talents around during a given raid, and whether or not you like it or not, how it feels,
Starts
what
laughing.
you think of them.
Yeah.
I hear Hinalover being all like, "Well, I've got stuff to say about this, so let's go with you first."
Yeah.
I switch almost every single fight. Almost. I go through a whole stack and a half of raid week.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, I know that is the design philosophy that Blizzard wanted, right? They wanted you to have answers based on your talents and glyphs for different fights. And I changed 2 or 3 times during the whole raid. And the whole track we've had so far, even like when we finish up normal clearing, like, only a little bit, but every single fight, you say?
Every single fight up to 3 to 4 talents.
Wow. I'm almost jealous. That sounds really cool. Sorry, I know it doesn't sound like
Yeah.
you're a really big fan of it, but
No,
I like
it's
the
actually
idea.
it's fun actually. I enjoy it. It's just
Okay.
the fact that I have to switch, and then sometimes I forget. It's like, oh crap, I needed to switch to that.
You got Zuen on like Spoils of Pandaria.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Ah, terrible.
Best thing is like forgetting to switch Mass Exo with something else, and then I'm like, well, can't use this at range. Whoops.
Yeah. So I get. No, go ahead, Kelly. Go ahead.
I think the first night that tier released, whenever we were just blazing through normals, I think I went through an entire stack of tomes. I hadn't done that in a while.
So I guess there's a fun element to that. I guess that's interesting. But then there's also like a weird. There's a word I'm looking for right now, and I can't think of it. That it's almost like it's not an inconsistency that you can't attack a fight. Each fight you have to attack totally different from a monk standpoint. So you have to like. It's almost like you have a different. Like I go into a fight and I can basically never change any of my stuff and go in fine on every encounter. Right? I can min-max a little bit. But it seems like you have to do this to actually like really perform well in these encounters, though. Like to play devil's advocate here, like if you just went in with like Zuen on everything, would that probably be really lackluster on most of the encounters?
Oh yeah, especially
Yeah.
the ones where Rushing Jade Wind is king.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So, But it seems like to me, it's not just an answer. You almost have to. And if you don't min-max as a Windwalker, you almost lose a lot of your potency on encounters.
What else do you guys switch? Because I'm not
Yeah.
familiar enough with Windwalkers to know. I realize that you've been speaking of your level 90 talents, but what else are you talking about?
Uh, Level 15, which is our movement,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes having trying to think real quickly. One of them is a root snaring removal. For
Oh.
so for fights where you know you're most likely going to get snared, you'll take that. Another one is between Ascension and Chibro. Ascension is really good in conjunction with Rushing Jade Wind because you're going to have a lot more energy to work with.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Uh, Chi Brew is very good for single targets, so I would switch it for something like Thok. I would use Chi Brew. Something like Protectors, I would use Ascension.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah,
See, I wish my movement talents were that interesting.
I'm probably one of the very few Windwalkers I know who just doesn't swap out of Chibru anymore. I'm just so comfortable with it, whether in single target or in AE situations, that I'd rather just hold on to Chibru because I think it is the best talent right now. The only ones I really swap out are level 90 and occasionally our survival CD tier with diffuse magic and dampen harm.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Hmm.
Yeah, and my movement talents are just. I used to think they were really interesting, but now I think they're really boring because we have basically a sprint. We've got a little mini sprint on Judge, and we have got a nice passive move speed boost. And I used to switch them all the time, and then I just realized that when you're hardcore rating, you kind of want to sprint almost all of the time. So I pretty
Yeah.
much have been spec sprint for all of T15 and all of T16. So.
Yeah, you definitely find out. I think, but the thing, it's different. I don't have the same thought process you guys do because my movement tier has things that help other people, not just me. So like, it's not the same. Because
Are you calling paladins and monks selfish, Bay?
well, no, you just have better. You have a different tool set in that regard, and it brought me back to the whole point that Zuen shouldn't be a talent. Is that it seems like you guys have a lot of things that are almost passively caked into other classes, where you have to choose these different things that other classes get all the time. Like it almost feels a little bit. I mean, again, monks are still almost beta in some regard, as you haven't stayed congruent for one patch, right? One content patch anyway. So I wonder if that's going to change a lot for 6.0 for you guys, because it seems like for me, I have Spirit Hunt, our Spirit Walk rather, our built-in sprint now, like a rogue sprint, and it has a snare removal already built into it, but you have to actually talent it to get that same thing. So it feels, I don't know where your give and take is with that class yet. It sounds like there's a lot of things we're still trying to tweak.
Yeah,
Class.
exactly.
Yeah.
Even for Mistweavers, I know their whole spec is they flat out have said they're going to redesign it for 6.0.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Windwalkers, they feel like they're pretty good. It sounds like they feel like we're in a pretty good spot right now, and I have to agree, and we can get to that later. But there are other things that they could tweak. There's
Yeah.
stuff that we have gripes with that we've been saying all expansion, and then there's stuff that has come up this patch itself that are little gripes. Some of them are good, some of them are bad.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I'm going to move this on because I know this was a big topic, but I want to just briefly touch on this before we actually get into something that people were talking about earlier. I have this as sticking points, right? So every class, we had this big discussion with Shadow Priests about it, but what about you guys? Have there been any trinkets that have basically changed the game for Windwalker monks? And
There was
Leading
one
question.
last.
go ahead,
There was
Cal.
one last year, but I vendored it. So
Oh, yeah.
Rune of Reorigination. I mean, it's not a monk chat if
Yeah.
you don't talk about that crap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rune of Reorigination, if you don't know, is basically takes all your stats from the two lower secondary, like crit or haste, and put it into your third higher stat, mastery, for our case, and then gives us a major buff for 10 seconds. The way our mastery was in 5.2 was that, remember how I said it was a 6% Tiger Brew
Yes.
up to 10 stacks currently. Before it was like 2%.
It was really
base,
low. I remember that.
yeah, 2%. But then you can increase that with mastery, um, for 50 up to 15 stacks. So people were so with the trinket proc, you were seeing people with close to 6-7% Tiger Brew stacking 15 times, giving a
Yeah.
massive damage boost while it was up. So you were seeing people doing 3-4 million damage on Heroic Horadon, for example, on our Rising Sun Kick.
Yeah,
Jeez.
it was a little out of proportion. I know that feral druids had like the same thing with that stupid trinket, and I know going into it with Shaman, we were like, it's either gonna be great or terrible. It turned out it was terrible. So I don't have to worry about all the math. But for you guys, I know it was like, I need this to actually be good, and that's a terrible
Yeah.
design point.
It was, and the major issue we ran into is RNG. For example, if your trinket procced in Megara, it was usually when the head was dying. So you'd get maybe
Yes!
1 or 2 seconds in during the proc, and it was
So annoying.
just terrible. You never want to balance a class around a trinket, especially whenever you have to consider that maybe 10% of monks ever even got anything above the LFR trinket.
Ugh, yeah, that's terrible. And as
I just think that was a problem in general with
Yeah.
last year's itemization. The fact that so many classes had one trinket where they were like, this changes how we play, this changes our DPS output by an order of magnitude. And even if that wasn't true, that was the perception, and that was the perception that everybody had when they were playing. I know strength using classes had that problem to a lesser degree with Feather, and we talked about UVLS last episode as well, and then you guys had the rune, and I don't like that itemization design at all. I don't think it's great.
Yeah. Well,
it's terrible. It's terrible planning, and it means that the following tier, either the item has to be nerfed or the class has to be nerfed. And in our case, the class was nerfed, whereas ferals are still using the trinkets.
Ugh.
until they get heroic trinkets from this tier, is last I saw.
Yeah, the thing about the feral druids though, they've gotten stealth buffed. I think because of no one plays the class. They want to. I almost feel like Blizzard's trying to put a desire to play the class again right now, because as like top tier goes with gear BIS stuff, feral druid is like the best damage period in the game right now. It is unbelievably ridiculous
Yeah,
if
it's
you're
pretty
geared,
good.
and I think that's almost like a flip flop. Every class. I mean, we talked about before on the show the whole imperfect imbalance thing with patches, and it's fine, but right now that's how it looks like with feral druids. If you have a good feral druid that knows what he's doing and knows how to balance his stuff, you can be number one by multiple percentiles above everyone else in the raid. So, but the whole point of it, where that comes from with your class, with a trinket changing that, and and UVL last episode with Shadow Priest, like that's Blizzard's always had like a weird, either they have terrible trinkets or they have game breaking ones. There's never like right here. It's always
Oh,
way
so like
west.
this tier with trinkets, where they are basically all terrible.
Oh yeah, well that's what I'm saying though, is that they last tier they were like so good for certain classes, like they were like game changing, and this tier
Speak for
you're all,
yourself. My trinkets are awesome this tier.
well this mine are just kind of like like I don't get an amp trinket, so I don't know how that feels, but the CDR trinket's pretty good, but it just their cooldowns are faster, but it's not like game changing, that just it's a change of your rotation priority for your cooldowns, but yeah, there's a couple trinkets that have always been really problematic, I guess, in that regard.
Yeah,
Well-
it would be nice if the CDR trinket were better for us. Like, I'm always
Yeah.
saying, yeah, it's a great trinket, but only if you happen to be playing with a Fist of Fury rotation. Otherwise, for us, most of them are pretty overall.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I gotcha.
Yeah, because for us, the CDR, the two main of the 6 abilities that they give us to reduce cooldowns, the two main ones for Windwalkers are lower the case for energizing brew, which gives us like 60 extra rage every minute before cooldown reduction, and Fist of Fury, which reduces our cooldown from 25 seconds down to like 18 seconds, I want to say.
Muted. Why was I muted? I didn't even touch the button.
I was
so
hearing you.
good. You
You were
guys heard
talking.
me. I don't know why. XSplit muted me. I didn't even move away from it. That's weird.
Oh,
So
okay.
whatever. It happens. It happens. I've had a good track record for it now, but oh well. Maybe I didn't want to bring up this next topic because we brought it up earlier. So Anna, bring it up because I don't want to talk about it.
You don't want to talk about it? All right. Well, let's talk about haste, because haste is my favorite secondary stat. It's a good thing that I'm not the guest on this show, or you'd be hearing a rant from me. But let's hear from the monks. I'd love to hear a little bit about how y'all's secondary stats have treated you throughout the expansion, particularly haste versus the others. Any caps that you've had to deal with, any irritating changes that have happened from tier to tier. And what's going on right now for the monks who are watching this show right now and who want to know how to gear. So start us off, Callie. I'm going to go to you first.
I saw a question earlier in the show asking what our haste breakpoints are, etc. All breakpoints are personal. I'd say that I think it's every 4,500 haste or so you get one more energy per second unless you're using Ascendance, and slightly lower than that. But even like 1/3 of an energy per second is something that you can feel in your rotation. So many monks are comfortable with haste anywhere between, I think the lowest I've been at was about 4,500 back in 5.1. Last year we hit 9,000, and a lot of us became really comfortable with that. So in this tier, especially with guides, I've been advising people, if you feel better at about 6,000 haste, that's your breakpoint. Otherwise, haste basically drops in value for us around 9,000 as far as our attack speed, tiger strikes, and things like that.
So,
tiger strikes is just a passive ability that causes more yellow hits.
okay, but you said around 9,000 is like where you want to go. Not one over, so not going over 9,000, just 9,000. If we're going right,
9,000.
just the sticker is right there on my wall, but just to confirm here, 9,000.
Yeah, go ahead, Hina. You probably have that memorized.
Yeah.
Actually, I was going to say, if you have 22% haste, which is somewhere around 9,200, that's what I would say is a good place to be. But for me personally, I've actually gone just this past week gone a little bit down since I got the tier 16 4-piece. But if you feel, I would have to agree. If you feel comfortable with 6,000, go with 6,000. If you feel comfortable at 9,000, go with 9,000. I've seen people go with 10,000, 11,000 haste. I know Rotund, who is the fanatic about haste.
I know.
He is in the 11,000 range. There is a hard cap of like 13,000 or so. But basically, you're removing abilities that basically by doing more haste, you use less abilities such as Fist of Fury, which is a channel ability. As well as your tier 45 abilities, which is tier 30 abilities, which is kind of rotational, where one of the abilities is Chi Wave, that's on a 15-second cooldown. If you have more haste, you use that less and less because you won't have enough room to fit it into your rotation.
Interesting. So it feels like there's a point where you get it and then you don't get any more of it. Is that what I'm getting right from this? Is that you don't want over a certain amount because it almost seems like it limits you?
It
to some degree?
Will limit you depending on how much haste you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole point of it is to have a fluid rotation where you're not energy capping, but you're also not sitting there for like 2 minutes waiting for your energy to regen.
Sure.
See, it's so weird to me to hear about a class that works with where haste impacts your resources. Because for me, haste only impacts the speed of my GCD, and so it doesn't. I don't necessarily spend any more time waiting around. I just can't imagine what it's like to play and be looking and think, man, I wish I had more haste so that I could perform more actions. You know?
Well, feral druids and rogues are the same way. more haste they have, the more energy they're able to use. Ferals, for the longest time, their primary stat was haste because they needed to be GCD capped as best they could. Instead, they would be waiting for 2-3 seconds before they could use their next shred. That's not the case anymore, but...
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's just funny that it works in such a different way. I can imagine that you guys get a heck of a lot more annoyed than I do at low haste levels, and the high ones feel very different than they do to a class like mine.
Well, like I said, less haste you have, the more chance you're able to throw in Fits of Fury or your Tier 30 abilities. Fits of Fury, like I said, is a channel ability, 4 seconds reduced by haste. So it's more like about 3.5 per second haste, second cast. But then with the trinket, you're able to use it more often. So what we say is, if you want to go with the Ascension trinket, go with less haste.
So wait, more haste lets you cast more Fist of Fury?
No, less Fits of Fury.
Okay, less.
More or less. Keeping in mind that Fist of Fury's channel is actually lowered by the amount of haste that you have. Previously, I think if you had above, I think it was actually 14%, it was a very low number, you would actually lose a tick of Fist of Fury, but that was actually changed in 5.1 so that now you still get the same amount of ticks, but the channel speed is quicker, so you don't really lose it by having higher haste. It's more that timing it is a little bit more difficult.
Ah, I see. But let's talk a little more about Fists of Fury because I do not like that ability whatsoever. Every time I have something to stun, every single time something's on DR, Rotund, are you using Fists of Fury? So I know that this has been kind of a dramatic topic for monks. There's a difference in the monk community between those who've been using more Fist of Fury and using less. So why don't y'all tell me a little bit about that ability so I can like it a little bit more when I see it go off.
Oh, well, okay. Fist of Fury is, like I said, a channel ability that roots you. There is no glyph or anything to remove it, and that's one of the pet peeves that people complain about. Roots you in place, stuns you, and roots you for the entire duration that you're there. It also, depending on trinket haste, it lowers the ability, cast time, and whatnot. But it's really, for PvE reasons, it's an energy filler. Something that allows you to build up energy while doing damage at the same time. PvP, they mostly use it for the stun duration. So, for example, you're trying to lock down a healer, use Fist of Fury to lock it down while your other guy is killing off his teammate.
And then Kelly, what do you got with Fist of Fury?
I actually really like the ability because I think it adds a little bit more flavor to our rotation versus just standing there, jab, blackout kick, jab, blackout kick. I mean, obviously the stun mechanic is nice, but it's not something that I overly emphasize. I mean, most ad fights actually ignore its stun. For example, Tier 14, the AoE boss, I think it was Blade Lord or Windlord? Windlord.
One of the lords.
One of the lords
of the thing that he didn't even really use.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
always thought they switched the names on those.
Seriously. One of the things was that if you stun his ads, that you were going to wipe the raid. So a lot of monks weren't using Fist of Fury on that fight. And it turns out that the stun for it was actually ignored. So this is one of the first tiers where we've kind of used it for its stun mechanic, just because it actually does work on the ads.
Hey, I used it for Heroic Lei Shen.
Oh, I tanked that, so can't really comment on it.
I mean, on stuff that's like immune to the stun, I guess that's totally fine. But it does, we talked about it a little before in the pre-show, that it's the first mechanic, it's basically a melee Mind Flay, but it's an AoE frontal cone, but it roots the caster. So can you, how do you cancel it? Do you have to have like a cancel macro to move it, or you like recast it, or can you just actually like, how do you move and stop it if you need to move and not get chomped on by like, you know, Thok or something like that? Like, what is it? How do you stop Fist of Furying early?
You just kind of move.
You just move?
If you jump or walk or anything
Okay.
like that. It's instantly canceled.
Okay.
Yeah, it's similar to other channeled abilities.
Of course. But I guess if when you stop, it ruins the whole. How many procs during like a regular cast does it actually hit for? Like how many ticks does it have during the cast? Is it 3, 5, or
5 or 6? I think
I
5.
believe it's about 5. Yeah.
it's about 5?
I believe it's about 5 because one of the issues we were having in 5.1 is that I was only getting 3 or 4 ticks.
Sure. And I guess the issue with only reason why I bring it up is because with Mindflay, they always have, as the Shadow Priest side of things, they had to make sure they monitor it, and like depending on procs, they would cut off 1 tick, but if you cut off more than 1, then it was like a huge DPS loss, like math-wise, like down the whole fight. So like, is that the same kind of deal with Fist of Fury, that if you have to do something else in it, and you spent the time and the chi to use Fist of Fury, and you get cut off, is it like a break point of like, you want to hit at least 3 of them, but you can cut at 2, or is there any like wiggle room there?
Yeah, I would say you probably don't want to lose any, obviously.
Well,
but
sure, of
if you
course.
If you get 3 to 4, it's still a gain.
Okay. Interesting. Because I'm always weird about those tick spells, because if you have to do something, because every fight requires whatever, if you misplan your rotation or whatever else just to buffer people, then I go like, well, if I cast it in 1 hit, then it's worthless. So, okay. But you want 3 or 4. Okay. Gotcha. So then, we'll move away from Fist of Fury and get a little more detail-oriented here. How do you guys deal with single-target encounters? I know we've been talking about your rotation intermittently throughout all of this, right? So, like, you do this, you do that, you do this, but for single-target encounters only, so you have no true burst, is what I say. Like, you don't have a fire elemental that does, 90% of your damage, apparently. So
Slight exaggeration there, babe.
Slight exaggeration. I always think it's funny that people rag on enhanced summons for fire elemental, and then it only does like 18 million damage the entire fight. But then you look at rogues and like they have 55 million damage done by instant poison, because that's fine.
Like
yeah,
33% of my damage was passive last time I checked logs.
Yeah, but so what do you guys do for single target then, with like glyphs and cooldowns and talents, stuff like that? What's the best way to go about it?
Well, the first thing you do is you wish that it was still 5.0, 5.1 when we were the kings of single target.
Okay.
And then you remember that we're still really good at cleave AE now.
Yes.
I think the major change we do is we usually drop Rushing Jade Wind and basically go into Shu and Talent instead. Most of our rotation stays about the same, other than we don't need to keep up Rushing Jade Wind, we don't need to worry about Storm, Earth, and Fire, and then you just continue hitting your buttons as normal.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Then Hannah, anything else about single target? That sounds pretty simple. I thought it was going to be a lot more.
No. I would say Chi Brew and Zuen, and you're good to go for single target.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I mean, most of our AE rotation is our single target rotation. The only differences between the two of them is some people are more meticulous about how they position Fist of Fury so that the ticks aren't split over different targets. Mm-hmm. You keep up your Storm, Earth, and Fire, and you hit Rushing Jade Wind. Those are the only differences that you have between your single target and your multi-target rotations.
Really? Those are the only things that you change?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, how do you feel about that? I mean, do you like it that way? Just that there was some more that you could do at maybe different levels? I know that, at least for Rets, there are different things that we can do if there are 2 or 3 targets in range, or if there are 4 or more and they're going to be lasting more than 30 seconds. Do you like it the way that it is now for monks, or do you wish that maybe there was a little bit more of a change?
I actually like it. Between Storm, Earth, and Fire and Rushing Jade Wind, we do a massive amounts of AoE. But it's just it's a simple change. It's a bit of micromanaging, but it does work for us.
I've heard a lot about the Storm, Earth, and Fire thing. Is this where you put like a copy of yourself attacking another mob and doing all of the same things that you are?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It was added in 5.2 to help with our cleave ability, because we really didn't have anything in 5.0 and 5.1. And it apparently was, I had completely forgotten about this, but it was an ability that Chen had during Warcraft 3.
Yes.
I see.
Yeah, it's from the original game. Yeah, it's from the...
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It was his ultimate ability or whatever. He split into... It was him plus 3, yeah.
Yeah, so basically what it is we cast Storm Earth and Fire on an ad that we are not tanking,
Gotcha.
attacking. And then if there's a third ad, we put a second Storm Earth and Fire on the third ad. And basically, any ability that we are doing that is not attacking an ad that they are attacking, they will copy whatever we are doing, whether it's Rising Sun Kick, Fist of Fury, Jab, Tiger Palm, whatever. It'll even do talents such as Rushing Jade Wind. So you'll see, say for example, Protectors, if they're all next to each other, you cast Rushing Jade Wind with with both of them out, you'll see Mugs doing a massive amounts of damage.
Gotcha.
Basically, to put it a little bit more succinctly, Storm Earth and Fire copies all of our yellow abilities, including our talents such as G-Wave. The only time that they will stop copying them is if we start attacking the exact same target as they are, in which case they're only going to copy our white hits.
Interesting.
Okay, I see how that works. That is a really, I don't know, I really like having these cool, flavorful abilities that kind of make you happy to be playing your class, and that it sounds really neat when you guys are talking about that one.
Is there still a damage percentage drop, though, right?
Yes.
For each Storm Earth and Fire you have out, you can have up to 3, correct?
No, 2.
It's 2, okay.
The first time, your damage is reduced by 70%, but you and your ad do 70% less damage. So together, you do 140% damage.
Correct.
So you're doing 140% damage on Dark Shaman when they're near each other.
Yeah.
For Protectors, you're dropped down to 55%. So overall damage, you're doing 165% damage.
Correct. On fights like that it can be used for. So I guess in the whole, because I know you have your UI stuff that we can get into in a second here, but so Earth and Fire are 2 summoned, and I guess you're the Storm, correct? Is that how it?
It's random.
Oh, it's random. Oh, that's kind of cool. I thought
Sometimes
it was always the same.
Sometimes I'm Fire, sometimes I'm Earth.
Oh, is there actually like a different look to your character when it happens?
Yes.
And they change colors, and
Cool.
They have different weapon animations.
Very cool. Okay. That's neat.
See, I thought Captain Planet had 5 different.
I was waiting.
No, we don't have heart.
There's no power of heart. Okay,
No
well that's
heart.
kind of a bummer.
Come on, the monkey though. It was all about the monkey.
So Callie, we never got an answer from you on that. Do you like the way that your AE rotation works, or do you wish that it was a little different?
I would honestly, I don't mind Storm Earth and Fire. I feel that tracking it, we require rounds, which we're about to go into.
Yes.
And I think that that's pretty terrible. I think that Rushing Jade Wind is something that should have been added from the get-go. Early on, what it used to be is that it would just go in front of you in a cone, and it was like this little twister animation, which was kind of cool. But if, for example, your camera was facing the different direction than your character, anything like that, you could really mess it up, basically. And so I think now it makes more sense for it to just be very similar to how Blight worked for DKs, where you hit a button and it's a passive AE kind of dot.
Yeah. Okay.
I see.
Interesting. Because I know that. Because learning about all these classes to me is always the fascinating part of how they find the balance for it. And I know that when they gave you what was replaced or removed with Storm Earth and Fire when it came in.
Nothing.
Spinning crane kick. Yeah. Well, I mean, it was already there, but now it replaces spinning crane kick whenever you attach to it.
Okay.
I thought you
That's
said
what I meant,
Storm Earth and Fire. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, no. Okay, cool. That's so cool to me. I guess I'm just so pigeonholed. I've been playing Enhanced Shaman since BC, so.
Yeah, we don't have to wait on Maelstrom Weapon to proc.
Well, no, that's I definitely have to do that. So then I guess if you have examples of encounters that work really well. I know we talked about how Storm Earth and Fire is very good on Protectors, right? So like, how do you guys handle different AoE strategies with your talents? Like, what are suggestions for a per fight basis to use this on this, to use that on that, to use that on that? Like, how do you guys tackle different sort of AoE encounters?
Well, for Gallicraft, for example, the first thing I do, probably annoys my tanks, is I cast Storm Earth and Fire as soon as the ads spawn. That way it's already up. I can already buff them with Tiger Palm, use RSK, and then Rushing Jade Wind.
If you're not annoying the tank, you're just not doing it right. I mean,
I know,
when,
right?
those, when those
Excuse
things
melee.
spawn on Gallicrats, I'm like, I got a 4-piece proc. I'm hitting it right now. I don't care if you're not anywhere here yet, tank.
Yep.
That's
No,
doing it right.
I've had that happen before. I usually pop cooldowns and walk in because that's
Oh, yeah.
that's a weird aggro thing because they don't actually aggro until they stop moving at the thing, but you can attack them all the way down the high jaw path. Like, come on. Same thing happens with spoils where the mob until he stands up doesn't actually have an aggro table. So if you put anything on him beforehand, which you can, he turns and hits you for 900,000 and kills you on the pole. That happened before, but
Yeah, that's happened to me before.
yep. So okay, you went over to Gallicras. What else you got?
I'll
For
let
AoE.
Tina take another one.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
General Nazgram. You can actually send an Storm, Earth, and Fire on each of the ads that you're attacking. So you can send one over to the melee's Whirlwind one. They will not get damaged by the Whirlwind, and you can just continue working on him. Or you can send a Storm, Earth, and Fire onto Nazgrim while he's in defensive stance and doesn't give Nazgrim Rage.
Does it count as a guardian, or
Yes.
how does that? Interesting. Huh. Okay. Because that's actually something I've been wondering about. Because we always have like the oh my god, get everything off of Nazgrim. He's in defensive stance, but there are so pets don't do it, right? Totems don't do it. Guardians don't do it, and that counts as a guardian. Okay, that's a good tip that people might not know. That you can store within fire and attack your ads that spawn, but still actually damage Nazgrim during defensive stance. That's cool.
It'll
cool.
do less damage when you have no ads out, but
Of course. But usually when you time that, there's always a ad phase right as defensive stance goes, and then when it's ending, so you can still do damage to him when other people can't.
yeah.
That's an optimizing thing that people might not know about.
If only I could do the same.
Yeah,
do
I
not
know.
like that fight.
I mean, I can just leave my searing totem down. That's all I could do. And wolves, go raptors. So they do like 4 damage. They hit for tickles. So I mean, it doesn't even matter. But
Well, I know you guys went into this a little bit before, and I'd like,
Yeah.
since it's totally on topic, I'd like to bring this up. Y'all have mentioned some add-ons that you use.
Yep.
If there are any specific add-ons that you think are just completely vital to playing your monk, things that monks should really be using, important things to track. I know that's generally the problem with maintenance buffs that we talked about before, is that tracking things is very difficult. So
yeah.
tell the class, what do you use?
about-
Weak auras. That's basically
auras?
the main one I use.
Yeah.
I also have a Forte Exorcist bar just to track all my cooldowns, since I'm trying to condense all my weak auras down.
Is
But
that
for
still
me, the
working
major-
for you? Forte Exorcist?
Yeah,
Yep.
it looks like
Still
it's right
working.
here. I'll switch over to the screenshot right now, and you can walk us through. It's right there in the middle.
For some reason, I thought it wasn't maintained anymore. That's great.
Yep, no, it's right
Yeah.
there in the middle.
Yeah, so OUF, actually, this middle thing, you'll see like the bear. That means that I need to put up my Tiger Palm. Then I've got my trinket buffs right there under my chi, which are the 4 dots right in the middle. I
Mhm.
track my Rushing Jade Wind to make sure that that's still running. Right under that is whether or not I have Tiger Eye Brew up already. The only ones that you can't see on this are my Storm, Earth, and Fire Weak Aura, which just shows whether or not I have 2 of them up.
I see.
You just have a
Okay.
tracker for it that shows. Okay, interesting. I mean, this
Yeah.
is your UI is kind of similar to how mine looks like that. I always like the really simple layout. So I guess those are the big things to talk about is weak auras right here. You use weak auras for your Rushing Jade Wind and your Tiger's Eye Brew, correct? Is that
Yep.
what you just said?
And
Okay.
I also have one that stacks up that shows my stacks of Tiger Eye Brew.
Oh, okay. Okay, we don't see that in the screenshot though, right? It's not there because you used it, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. What's the bear
Yeah.
for again?
That shows whether or not my Tiger Palm is going to fall off in the next 4 seconds, or if it's
Oh.
already fallen off.
Oh, that's the same way that I track Inquisition. Is I have a little icon that comes up, and if there's 3 seconds remaining, so I remember to put it back.
Yeah, I decided to go with the most annoying thing I could, so I put it right in the center.
It's a giant
Yeah.
bear. Oh,
Well, but
he's so angry.
I see that you also have something in this UI that I think most melee play, or most raiders in general, but specifically for melee, it's really important, is that it looks like you keep the center of your screen pretty clear, and I like that whenever I see that in a UI. You can see
Oh,
stuff
definitely.
underneath you.
Yeah.
So many people put weak
Oh,
auras
yeah.
and stuff, like they put their weak auras right where they're standing, and I'm just like, I don't know how you can do that. I mean, my
Yeah.
holy power is pretty much where your chi is, so that makes a lot of sense to me. But other than that, I mean, you have to keep the center of that screen as clear as you can. Otherwise,
Mhm.
you're never going to know if you're standing in anything.
And there's
agreed.
plenty to stand in tier 16 right now.
Oh, there's plenty.
Let's talk about that stupid poison animation on protectors. Yeah, that's easy to see.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, Blizzard,
Especially whenever it's surrounding the boss that you can't even get into melee
Of
range.
course, of course. And those stupid little keg foofies on the ground that all of a sudden crit you for a bajillion damage. But yeah. And then Hina, we'll go into yours real quick here. You can preface this and we'll talk about your UI. You have your layout similar.
Yep. Basically, what I do is it's fairly custom made, Pitbull, but the main thing for me is the fact that I use weak auras on the left, and on the bottom right, I track my Storm, Earth, and Fire with a mod called Storm, Earth, and Fire. Basically, on the left, I am trying to keep track of my trinket procs, on what buffs I'm missing, what add-ons are off cooldown, such as Russian Jade Wind, whatnot. Whether I have my crit buff up, my stats buff up.
Mm-hmm.
At the bottom, you'll see 2 bars. That's actually tracking my chi. And then right above that, for people who've worked with Ovale or CL Ret, they know that there's a rotation. And there's a lot of times during a fight where I just am trying to not keep track of my rotation and just trying to worry about the encounter itself. And so what I do is I try to have a rotation weak aura set up using Simulation Craft's priority system that it's able to give me what the next probable ability I should be using next. So in the case of the screenshot, it shows that I'm at 20 stacks of Tiger Eye Brew. I should use that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see that. It actually shows up twice. So
well, it was one's for showing that it's available. The second one is like you need to use it now, or you're wasting.
Definitely. How many stacks of Tiger Eye Brew can you have max?
20 stacks, but 10 stacks per use.
Correct. Okay, that's why it's yelling at you right now. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I gotcha. That makes sense. So it does look like you both have very similar weak aura setups that I think is really important. I have the thread. I have 2 threads real quick that I'll drop in the chat if you guys want to bookmark. There is that one right there. That one's about the weak auras, and I also have one more that's about Storm, Earth, and Fire, which is another weak auras version, which you can either do that. And you have a curse. I think I have a cursed link here too.
Yeah,
we gotta make just like a UI section on the Final Boss website or something for all of the guests that we bring on, so that we can link to the different things that they use in their UIs.
Yeah, there's definitely some really awesome stuff, and that's like a lot of the big point too. Is we interview these classes, and then people are like, well, how do they do the things that they do? And that's a lot of comes down to some people don't like UIs, but that's a very minimalistic look because there are things you want to track to make sure you keep up, But that's really really good. I like that. Both really similar, which is interesting because. Sometimes you see people that are in the same class are hugely different ways they handle stuff, but it looks like there are definitely some really key things to track for a Windwalker that is very consistent.
So just to go into sort of a more general topic, I'd love to hear from you guys who are pretty much monk experts at this point, what you think of Blizzard's design philosophy for monks. Y'all have played a monk since the launch of the expansion. You have been through all the trials and tribulations of all of the tiers that have come and seen the mastery changes, and you've dealt with all the different changes to the class. What do you think of the direction of the class right now? Where do you see it succeeding and failing? And give us a little of what you'd like to see in 6.0.
Well, let me just open by saying I don't think they really have one at this point for Windwalker.
Oh no! Well, I mean, that's an answer. If you think they're just grasping at straws, they don't know where they're going with the class, that's an answer. It's a depressing one, but...
I mean, honestly, their design philosophy for us has changed so many times. At first, we were the king of single target. Now we're the king of cleave. So I would prefer to be a middle ground between the two, since not every fight is single target, not every fight is cleave. But the big thing we are supposed to be is a large amount of DPS with a raid cooldown, which I don't even feel that we've even reached that at all.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this whole... Wait, we never went into this in the show, and we should do it right now. How do you feel about this whole I'm a pretty Windwalker who doesn't need a raid cooldown deal?
I think it's, well, honestly, and I've said this previously in other places. I think that they actually need to pull out a lot of the raid cooldowns. I think that
Yeah, I agree.
stuff like Devotion Aura, no offense or anything, Anna, but it should be holy only. Just
No,
like
I agree. I 100% agree.
I feel that stuff like Rallying Cry, Skull Banner, those just need to be removed. I feel that they're very superfluous. And we talk about this arms race that we have, so you want to implement a new DPS class, and hey, let's not give it a raid cooldown because we have an arms race, and I think that that's an extremely weak excuse to not give Windwalkers anything. Either give us something or just take them all out.
Yeah. No, I'm on that page.
Yeah. Okay. Hina?
I'm actually kind of similar. One of the main reasons why you will not find a lot of Windwalker monks in 10-man raids is the fact that we do not have a true raid cooldown.
Yep.
And due to that, most Windwalker monks you see are going to be in 25-man. There's been complaints saying give Windwalkers a raid cooldown, such as changing Zen Med to not be treated as a overgrown grounding totem, to just getting rid of all raid cooldowns. So you're seeing back and forth. But overall, it's the Windwalker class is the steady class spec. You're not going to find much change from the beginning of the fight to the end of the fight from a Windwalker monk. So it would be nice if we had a better DPS cooldown, but overall, in a sense, they have some good points, but they could work on changing a few things to help us better.
Yeah, I mean, the arms race suggestion, Chat was talking about healing orbs, and that's not even, I think, an argument, because A, they're not consistent, B, they don't really do a whole lot, and every other melee class that has cleave healing, like me, like our first episode we talked about how OP it was, I think we led to getting it nerfed, was that it was just consistent, on demand, you can use it when you wanted to, and you can control it, whereas your orbs are just kind of like...
Yeah, and for example, people in chat are talking about how we have all this personal utility and how we're supposed to be raid healers or something like that. First of all, enhancement shamans can easily out-heal us just by using the Maelstrom weapon glyph and by casting Healing Rain. That right there is going to eliminate anything that... Yeah.
That doesn't work anymore, but but before then, it was ridiculous. But
at one point.
Even so, that's still... You guys are more useless in that sense than we are. I think that's a very weak argument by saying, oh, well, Tiger Eye Brew, that increases your healing, and no. Just no.
No,
Furthermore, personal utility is not the same as, okay, the raid's taking a lot of damage, let's cast Evo Aura. That is so much different than, oh, I'm going to cast Touch of Karma, well, that one body saved, great.
Yeah, it felt like to me that monks had lots of tools for themselves, but not a lot of tools for everyone else. And that's almost quotable in that sense, that's kind of how the class is. And again, go ahead, Anna.
The fact that you think that is a sign of how wrong
I don't even play one, exactly.
The raid cooldown proliferation. The fact that we're talking about the fact that monks don't have enough tools for everyone else is a sign of how there are way too many tools that other classes have for everyone else. And I think that 6.0 is we're going to see a lot of changes across the board with regard to raid utility.
Absolutely. I talked about this in multiple episodes, whereas MOP being MOP was sort of a not linear expansion for like the storyline, like it was kind of like a testing grounds, and I feel like it's from the raid standpoint, PvP standpoint, and a new class standpoint, and the whole different hierarchy of the arms race here, that the entire expansion was like a live beta, and 6.0 is going to be a huge change, because it almost has to in that regard. And they've learned a lot from these 3 tiers. They've learned a lot from the PvP changes. They've learned a lot from the balancing of classes, giving this class this and that class that, and this class not this and this class not that. That we're going to see a whole lot of little things coming out in 6.0 that I think we're all really looking forward to. We're looking at a very hopefully. I mean, I'm saying this hopefully here. We're gonna have a very tightly balanced game with the item squish. So
yeah, we'll see about that.
Or it
Well,
explodes.
What
I
I'd
mean-
what I'd really like to hear from these guys
Yeah.
is if you could make suggestions for Blizzard about where you'd like to see Windwalker go in 6.0, setting aside the raid cooldown thing that we've already
Yeah.
discussed.
Mhm.
What would you feel would be a design direction that you'd be happy with?
They're both thinking. Look
They're
at
both
this.
thinking.
I know.
Pretty much.
I could go with the cop out answer, but
Go for it. You know
Go
what?
for
We
all
love
of them.
pop-outs.
Yeah.
remove give Windwalkers the glyph so that they can move while Fist of Fury.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How's
Yeah,
that a
that's what
cop-out?
we've been asking for the whole time. Like, we were asking for something to use Tiger Eye brew stacks a little bit more quickly. We got that in Chi Brew, which I think is a very balanced way to do it. I'd love to see it happen with Fist of Fury now. Have a major glyph, I don't care, so that we can use it while moving.
Mhm.
Now,
How
should
is this a
that...
cop-out? Why are you guys like this is a cop-out?
Well, it's the suggestions we've been asking for since 5.0.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So you're saying
Remove
it's
its stun. Remove its stun and let us move. It'd be great.
I wonder if that feels like it should be just not even brought in. I wonder if they would make it lock your orientation during the cast, right? But you can still move during it, because the only class in the game that has a self root, and that has huge pros and huge cons, and it seems like the cons just overweigh the pros in all regards, right? Because it's obviously a very strong ability because it's that channeled stun, but man, there are other stuns that are just as powerful and on a shorter cooldown and are ranged. Why does it need to be tied to this self-root DPS? I don't know. It's weird. Again,
Yeah.
But it's the flavor of the ability.
I suppose that's right, but again, putting it as a glyph, I suppose. I just wonder what they're working on with, because I always have a power struggle where if they give too much to this, then they have to take it away somewhere else. So if you get that glyph, what are you ready to lose? You know, like that's kind of how that imperfect imbalance goes. But is there anything else outside of Fist of Fury? We talk about it so
probably-
much. So what else?
Yeah, probably something such as making Revival baseline if we're going to have to
Oh,
have
yeah.
a cooldown.
There you go.
Mhm.
I think that would be useful, similar to how Ferals already have Tranquility. I mean,
I have Healing Tide Totem now
Yeah.
Exactly.
as
And
enhancement. So
Even
yeah.
something like Shu and baseline would be nice too, and have a more flavorful level 90 talent for him instead.
It's always
Uh,
kind of a bummer when you can't just completely love your level 90 talents. Y'all aren't the only class that I've heard that's felt that way. So to hear that you'd like Blizzard to spice it up a bit, that makes sense.
Well,
Yeah.
there's been suggestions to have a minor glyph added to change when to your different specs, like change it to an ox if you're in Brewmaster, change it to the dragon if you're in Mistweaver. So there are some flavorful stuff that have been suggested.
Definitely.
One of my major suggestions has been to, like I mentioned earlier, to change ZenMed so that it no longer acts like a grounding totem. Literally, it acts like a raid-wide grounding totem.
Yeah,
If you look at the tools tip, it's exactly the same as that of a grounding totem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I understand.
yeah. I think the only fight where that was even useful was on Darumu, where a lot of guilds use Zen meditation in conjunction with diffuse magic just to nullify the parasite mechanic. But even then, grounding totem was still stronger for that.
Sure. That's interesting too. I totally am on the boat with you about revival, though. I feel like that should almost be baseline for all three, but just obviously have different potencies, or only do the cleanse if you're Mistweaver, but still do the heal if you're Windwalker, and maybe do like a kind of Devo aura debuff or buff to your raid if you're a Brewmaster. That would be interesting, because that's probably one of the easiest ones I think about that would be workable, because right now you have that's sort of very niche, and every other class is not. They don't have a ton of little niche things. They're kind of broad strokes. So it seems like you guys need a broad stroke for your raid utility stuff. But
yeah. Other than that, I would say actually, I kind of feel like damage-wise, we are doing pretty good. It's just maybe an extra cooldown for more burst DPS potential. But other than that, I I actually feel kind of fine with my actual DPS rotation.
Okay, again, it goes back to making Zwen not worthless, I guess, would be something. I almost
Well,
feel like he should...
Zwen
Excuse me.
was redesigned
Yes.
last patch so that it's more consistent damage. Before it was very
Sure.
inconsistent because of pathing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Plus, he did get a slight buff in that it used to be every 6 seconds he would add a dot, but now he just constantly channels his attack.
Pulsing.
Huh.
Yeah. I was
Okay.
making a pulsing motion with my hand off camera.
Yes, I think we saw a little bit of that, yeah.
Careful,
Alrighty.
show's supposed to be PG-13.
I know, right? Jeez.
Oh my goodness.
All
So,
right.
So, I mean, you guys have talked a whole lot about talents and stuff, but how do you feel about the basic rotation? Like your single target rotation, do you find it interesting? Do you find it boring? Are there any changes that you'd want made for 6.0?
Kind of make casting Fist of Fury more desirable.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, you can almost get rid of it and do fine. Because right now it only gives like 1 to 2% extra damage overall if you use it on cooldown in your rotation.
Yeah. Okay. With you on that one. Anything from Callie?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you too. One of the things that I'd love to see is, for right now, Fist of Fury is barely a 1% damage gain to use it correctly. So it's great if you're trying to min-max, but for the most part you could do about the same damage without ever touching it. So it'd be nice to see it gain some kind of damage boost so that it's just more desirable to actually hit that button.
Yeah. Again, I knew when I put that one line about that ability in the show notes that it would like just rain over everything, but that's
Well,
good
the
though.
moment-
That's the whole
The
point.
moment you start talking Windwalker, that's bound to come up.
Is that's synonymous?
Yeah.
That's like your subtext. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen.
So let's get into the final part of the show here. We have 2 chunky questions from our viewers. So every week, half of why I built the show was to have you guys be able to ask questions to these top tier players from another world. So if you go right down there, FinalBoss.tv, and there's a Ask a Boss button. There's Ask a Boss right by Be a Guest. So if you want to ask a boss a question, either for the episode coming up when we announce it, or just to have a question answered by someone in the future from a class we haven't already done. Obviously, if we have done an episode for that class before, don't ask a question for like Warriors, because we're not going to come back around to Warriors in a long time. So ask a question for classes that are coming up, so we actually have questions ready to go. Obviously, we have an after show every episode that you can stick around here in a little bit. When we actually go off air, we'll come right back on and we'll do the after show, and we can just talk to the chat room, just carte blanche. But then during the show, we want to have good chunky questions that we have here. So go to FinalBoss.tv, ask us a question, and I will bring up the first one here, and we'll take the second one. Oh, that's the wrong thing here. But we always want to make sure you guys have this one-to-one time. So we have, I'm probably going to ruin his name, but we have Torlos from Quilthalos US that asks, when is it optimal to use Storm, Earth, and Fire given the high amount of fights where cleave damage is useful, but being the use of the ability is a DPS loss on the monk's main target? So I know we talked about Fallen Protectors, but is that really the only... Where else would you use Storm, Earth, and Fire?
Oh, definitely not. And on a Protector's fight, you really
Sure.
don't want to be using it unless you're on a secondary target, because otherwise you're really just padding. For a fight such as Nazgrim, that's less padding because you're actually doing boss damage while also hitting the ads. So that's helpful overall to your raid. But
Okay.
say Fallen Protectors, where they heal up to full whenever one dies, you just wasted a bunch of damage.
I think you mean Claxy,
Calaxy, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
Well,
not
Claxy-
Protectors.
Claxy's roughly the same, though. Whenever the bloods hit them, they heal up to full. So you
Correct.
can put it on a blood, but, for example, I've seen guilds that actually don't even hit the bloods. They just kite the boss that you're killing away from it.
Yeah, there's definitely a little bit of difference there. And Hina, what about that for you?
I'd actually kind of say the same thing. I'd say the fights that basically Storm, Earth, Fire, if you are on attacking a mob that is going to be for more than 8 to 10 seconds, use it. If not, I'd say just Rushing Jade win.
Okay.
So for fights like, Protectors, nourishing. When you go into the test phase, you can throw 2 Storm Earth and Fires onto the shielded guys and then attack the 3rd or 4th one.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of do it with Shaw Protector when the big ad appears, but if your DPS is hard switching over to it and killing it immediately, not really worth it. Galacross, useful. Iron Juggernaut, no. Dark Shaman, yes.
If you tank them together like a normal strat, not heroic though.
Yeah,
like
not you can
150 yards apart.
The way our guild starts to the side of the building,
Sure.
and then take the other one inside. So for a good 2 to 3 minutes, I'm doing Storm Earth and Fire damage onto both.
Yeah. Okay, I get you on that one on the pole. Definitely. Okay.
General Nazgrim, yes. It's going to
Malkorok,
be a little
no.
debatable. It depends on spoils. Like if you are able to throw it onto a medium or a large one, yes, use it. The small ones are going to die too fast, not even bother.
Okay.
All right, well, moving right along to the next question.
Yep.
Something that I know a lot of the pro Windwalkers in chat already know the answer to this, but for anybody who's watching the show who's questioning their gear choices for this tier, why don't you tell current Windwalkers a little bit about what the best trinkets are in this tier and where they should be looking for their trinkets?
I think I'll probably go ahead and take that one.
Yeah.
So I've already mentioned I'm huge with Assurance of Consequence, the cooldown reduction trinket.
CDR,
But it kind of comes down to how much you can fit Fist of Fury and Energizing Brew into your rotation and how comfortable you are with using them.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not very comfortable, don't use it. Just don't take it because it's going to be a damage loss to you and you're better off using a much different trinket.
Okay.
The two that I think, the one that you definitely want to gun for is the multi-strike trinket, regardless of whether or not you're using Assurance of Consequence, regardless of whether or not you want to use the Ticking Ebon Detonator. That one, the passive proc itself on PTR for me was at least 7% damage, if not more, most
Wow.
fights. So that plus its agi proc just makes it flat out the best trinket in the tier for us. Ticking Ebon Detonator is good also if you're using Fist of Fury, since you can snapshot the agi procs for it, which is something that I typically do. It's not my favorite trinket for this tier, but I still think that it's a very strong one. The Cleave Sigil of Rampage is one that I've almost completely ignored, simply because in a cleave situation, you'll be using Storm Earth and Fire, and since the cleave doesn't proc off of them the way it would with a Rogue's Blade Flurry, it's pretty useless. So even for that one, I would go with Multi-Strike or Ticking Ebon Detonator or Assurance of Consequence.
Mm-hmm. And Hina, anything on that real quick before we have to get out of here?
There's one other trinket that has been talked about, and it's actually Thok's Strength Trinket.
Oh, my trinket.
Yes.
The Foxtail Tip.
Yes. The reason why is it has a strength proc. For monks, we and feral druids in particular, we gain attack power from strength.
Sure.
It's only a 1-to-1 ratio though, compared to 2-to-1 or so with agility procs. But the stats on it are enough to actually keep an eye on it. So if I would suggest, if your strength users have completely finished getting that trinket, keep an eye out for it and see if it works for you.
Interesting. That's kind of something that I was thinking about. I know that strength is almost useless now for enhancement shamans, but that was the one trinket I was looking at. Like, is there math worthy on this thing as an agility class? Because it's still 1-to-1 attack power, right? So it's still like not terrible. But that's interesting. You actually did brought it up that it's actually a possibility for Windwalkers. Yeah, Primal even says we still gain AP. Like, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's a really neat trinket. The fact that it increases healing as well makes it useful to tanks and DPS both. It's just the way it's designed is a very interesting trinket.
Yep. I don't know. Well, that's everything from us.
Yeah, we should probably wrap it up here sometime soon.
I'm going to push this button. There we go.
Uh-oh.
You can't hear it, but I hear it. We have new music that we're working on here in the show, and that we'll be using in the future here. I have a friend of mine that's going to be making us new music. So right now, we're testing stuff, This is the one part of the song that I wanted to use, but thank you guys very much for watching tonight. Hinalover, you can go follow him over at the Twitter, at Hinalover. Super simple, right there. Just go follow him over there. And thank you very much for being on the show tonight, sir. Are you muted? Oh, there you are.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Calligraphy, Callie, over at Callie Monk EJ on the Twitters. You can go follow her there for everything to do with that side of the thing. You post up when you do new guides and stuff, right?
Typically, yeah. I mean, the most that I'm really doing right now is just EJ and MMOC.
Sure. Definitely. But you can go find her on the Twitter over there, as well as NFL. At NFL. These guys have super hard Twitters, I know, it's terrible.
Yeah, at Anafiel. Yep, that's me. And sometimes on Sacred Duty, but not for a long time. Becca's gonna beat me if I don't post though, so I'm gonna have to do something.
Yeah, well, don't. You went on record with this show saying you're gonna make something happen, so.
Yeah, let's hope that he watches that and gets on my butt about it so that I can,
goodness.
get a post written.
And then here I am, Bay. I'm over at twitch.tv, Bay TLM. It's not TIM. It looks like a lowercase. I don't know, it looks like an I in Twitch chat, but TLM. And we'll see you guys here next week, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. PST, and then 4 CET. Next week, however, we have a special guest episode. So far, it's just him, which apparently he makes up and is apparently 3 guests because the hat he'll be wearing is large enough to fit under with multiple heads. But we have Alex, part of the duo of FinalBossTV. They make all those awesome YouTube guides. We're sitting down with him and talking about how to make guides and the whole YouTube lifestyle for him and how that's affected their rating scene and how Laws does all their research for them. But until next week, with Alex of Fat Boss, we will be done for here. If you want to stick around for the after show, we'll talk to you guys in a minute. But thank you very much for being here. We'll see you next Sunday, right here on FinalBoss.tv. Have a great week, guys.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Wave bye. I'm waving bye. Doing it.